Hey, everybody, welcome to the Wedding Pioneer Show. My name is Jake, and I'm going to be your host today. Today, I've got a very special guest. I'm going to let Geoff introduce himself. First of all, Geoff, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you being here. Why don't you give us a little bit of just professional background on you and kind of what you're doing, and then we'll lead that in and let everybody know what we're going to be talking about today.
All right. Well, Jake, it's great to be here, man. I appreciate having me on. And first, I want to set the record straight. I'm not a special guest. Special has quite a connotation in my family. Thanksgiving, look at me and say, "Oh, that's the special one." So,
all right,
yeah, we're
a regular guest, Geoff.
Regular guest. There we go. Now we're cooking with oil. That's it. I appreciate you having me on. I started my company, Winning Wit, 10 years ago. First of all, because I have no ability to hold down a real job. So that's that. Yeah. Get that out of the way right there. And I've been a comedian for over 20 years. I was the best man at a big fat Greek wedding. I roasted the groom. Somebody else came up there and gave the worst speech in the history of the world, and that includes all of our last 5 presidents. Afterwards, the light bulb went on in my head. I said, what if I could help write funny, engaging speeches for people who have no capacity to write and even less capacity to deliver? Everyone else is in the wedding business. Let's create a whole new vertical and rock and roll. And it's been 10 years, and we've just been doing our thing since.
Awesome, man. Very cool. So with that in mind, obviously today on our conversation, we're going to be breaking down all things wedding speeches. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're about to give a wedding speech and you're freaking out a little bit, we're hoping to help you out. So this will be fun. So let's start out a little bit, just kind of setting the stage. I mean, for people that are maybe for the first time, I think some of the obvious ones are like the best man speech, like that one's one we kind of know, but who should be on their radar, I guess, prepared to be giving a speech, like from the people that you've worked with? Like if you've been asked to be a certain role, or maybe you're father of the groom or whatever, like who should be expecting to give a speech at like a rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, etc.? Like who should be getting ready for this?
First and foremost, fathers of the bride out there, you're on notice, gentlemen. You're on notice, because that is by far the most common speech that we do is fathers of the bride.
Okay.
That is the expectation. And the one thing about father of the bride speeches is that that's the one constant across every single culture.
Okay.
So we've done everything, Indian weddings, Irish weddings, Chinese weddings, Peruvian weddings. I mean, everything in between, the father always gets up there and says a few words. So it's always the father of the bride on deck. Okay.
Very good. So yeah, father of the bride, best man. Who else are you hearing from? Anybody else?
Maid of honor is a big one. Matron of honor is a big one too. You don't want to get that one wrong. A lot of times, I'll say, "Hey, we'd love to help you with your maid of honor speech." Excuse me, that would be matron of honor.
Right. Get it right.
You got a lot of that. Those are the 3 most popular ones. At most weddings, you're going to see that the father of the bride, best man, and maid of honor. But then it all depends on your family relationships, your family dynamics. Sometimes people were raised by a grandparent. Sometimes they were raised by an aunt or an uncle or a really close family friend. Sometimes, and we were talking about this off camera, you have a wedding MC that says the worst thing a wedding MC ever could, which is, "Hey, whoever wants to get up here and say a few words, come on down." And then, yeah, at that point, just take a shot, say your Hail Marys, and hope for the best.
There you go. So somebody, again, kind of speaking to that audience that maybe has been asked to be in a wedding and they've have no idea what's going on, never done this before. Talk about, I assume you guys write speeches and then also toasts. What are just some of the differences there? Like if you're giving a toast versus if you've been asked to give a speech, like, can you give just some general guidelines on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're going to give a toast, and this is common for rehearsal dinners, you just want to give a quick toast. This is where you're going to get up there and you clank the glass. You hopefully don't break it. Hopefully it's not cheap glass. You clank it a little bit and you get everybody's attention. And then you just want to give a quick welcome to everybody. You want to thank people by name who showed up. A lot of people who came from out of town. You want to give a shout out to the people who put everything together. Thank you for organizing all this good stuff, particularly if you have in-laws that paid for the rehearsal dinner. Got to give them the shout out. It's a good way to make sure next Thanksgiving is nice and smooth. So that's the toast. It's really acknowledgements and just a couple of well wishes for the couple. Hey, I just want to tell you 2 beautiful kids, or sometimes if it's a 4th wedding, tell you 2 beautiful seniors that, we wish you nothing but the best and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
A speech is a different beast. This is where you're going to get into not only acknowledgements for the crowd, you're going to start telling a lot of backstories. You're going to get into a lot of deep emotion about what these people mean to you. You're going to tell some heartwarming stories. You're going to tell some sentimental stories. You're going to tell some really, really funny and off the wall stories, depending on the crowd. And then you're going to wrap it up in a big, massive, rousing toast that gets the crowd on their feet.
Okay. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, we're going to get into some tips about specific speeches and just some of your go-tos, things like that. Before we do that, I'm assuming that when people are coming out and reaching out to you about writing a speech, that there's a lot of anxiety from the person that's coming to you that's just nervous about this. They don't like speaking in public, that sort of thing. So obviously you guys are helping them out with writing the speech, but do you have any like just general tips overall for somebody that's dealing with that feeling about delivering a good speech? Like what, when you give them the words to say, what else are you telling them? Like, how are you calming them down a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I get that all the time. That anxiety is off the charts.
Yeah.
Everybody who reaches out to me. So a few things I'd recommend to anybody out there who has anxiety about giving a wedding speech or just a speech in general. If you have to speak in public, it's, it's the number 2 fear behind death. Right. Apparently it's ahead of being bitten by a poisonous snake, but wow. I don't know, between you and them all, a little more worried about the cobra than I am about being a best man, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I would just say, first thing you want to do is, a lot of people are going to tell you to relax, is to breathe, is to maybe meditate and to try to even yourself out. I'm going to give you the exact opposite advice. I want you to lean into the fear. I want you to feel the fear. I want you to feel that kind of fire burning you up. I want you to feel that anxiety, because that's good. That is going to propel you into a high energy performance, which is what you want.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do up there is not to bomb with bad jokes. The worst thing you can be is boring.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing people forget. It's boring is the worst thing you can be. Not unfunny, but boring. If you feel that anxiety and you're doing your thing, just seeing you up there nervous is going to entertain people. So right out of the gate, you're already winning. Right. So I would feel that. I would feel that energy. Then I would reframe your mind from, oh my God, I have to give a speech. What if I bomb? To, oh my God, what an opportunity I have to bring down the house. How often in my life am I going to have a moment like this where I get a chance to just light up a room? Not everybody speaks in public a lot. It's a very rare thing. This is a cool life moment and you have that opportunity. So reframe your mind from what if it could go really wrong to what if it can go really right.
Yeah.
So now you're thinking and visualizing the best case scenario. You getting up there, you're getting laughter, you're getting tears, you have the crowd eating out of your hands. And by the way, let me tell you this, and this happens every single time. If you give a great wedding speech, people are going to be coming up to you the entire rest of the night, complimenting you on what a great job you did. And people you're going to see 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years later are still going to remember that speech and they're still going to be talking about it. So you have the coolest opportunity right now.
Yeah.
So reframe your mind. And then after you do that, what I want you to do is think about a song that really fires you up. Kind of song that you're driving along, and it comes on the radio, it comes on your playlist, and you just start kind of like dancing in your seat, like the really bad dancing the uncles do at weddings, like, that kind of dancing.
Yeah. That
dancing happens, you're all fired up, it gets you moving. I want you to think of that song, play that song in your mind before you take the stage, before you grab that mic.
What's your song? What are you playing in your head, Geoff?
Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue.
Okay.
Yeah, 80s hair metal, brother, all the way.
Okay.
I'm giving my Gen X bona fides right here, but
love it, man. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, man. I love that. That's very cool. Let's get into the best man speech, which is one that I feel like a lot of people are out there searching for information on. And I guess first thing I would ask you is that I feel like a lot of people are looking for the icebreaker to start with. And I don't know, I feel like best man speeches are heavy on jokes usually. I don't know. Just seems that way. It's kind of like a guys ribbing each other, that sort of thing. But, what's your thoughts on that? Like if you're starting out a best man speech, what kind of icebreakers are you telling people to lead off with? Like, is there like, you know what I mean? Like some can't miss like formulas or whatever to like a couple of good ways that just like go with this if you're starting out your best man speech to kind of get the momentum going a little bit.
Absolutely. So like anything else, you want to start with a joke, right? And the best kind of joke for a wedding speech is a self-deprecating joke.
Okay.
You want to let the crowd know, look, you're not taking yourself too seriously here. You're here to have a good time. So, a couple of go-tos are, just kind of start out, you grab the mic, you just say, I'm so glad to see you all here today. And I got to ask, are you guys having a good time so far? And everyone's going to start laughing. Everyone's going to start applauding. You're going to like, yeah, you're going to get the energy up. And then you just pause for a second. And then you just say, great, keep drinking so you can enjoy this part too. Right there, that's always going to get a laugh. That's always going to warm the crowd up. Another one that we've been using this year, particularly because of the world that we live in now.
Yeah.
You grab the mic and you say, I know what you're all thinking right now. Where's the mute button? Kind of looking for it. So you get a lot of that, the self-deprecation. As long as you can start out with something that gets a chuckle, lets the crowd know you're not taking yourself too seriously, you're good. You've got a meeting out of your hands right out of the gate.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So from there, you get a little chuckle, a little icebreaker. I mean, do you have like when you're writing a best man speech for somebody, do you have a bit of a template that you follow as far as like what comes next? Like what kind of stuff should they be including? Like, could you just sort of lay that out, like how you plan out a speech?
Absolutely. So every speech has its own unique DNA, but they all have, I would say, kind of the same human architecture. Kind of like, you and I are made of basically the same stuff, but we have a lot of different features. So a speech is kind of the same way. I would say the bones of a speech are, for a best man specifically, you get up there, you have your opening joke. Then what you want to do is kind of give the backstory about how you know the groom, how you met, embarrass the groom a little bit. Don't go too far unless the groom specifically says, humiliate me. And we've seen that, and that's pretty hilarious when it happens. So I would just say, know your crowd, know your audience. Then after you take the crowd on the journey of you and the groom, then you want to get to the groom's partner at that point. Okay, when did the groom first meet the groom's partner? Like tell me about the first date. Tell me about the first time you met them. What was your initial impression of them? And tell me about your relationship with them at that point. What are things that just the two of you have shared? Then what do you think about them together? If you're starting with 1, then you go with 2, then you go 1 + 2. At that point, you want to send them into, this is what I wish for you. This is what I hope for you. Here's some wedding advice from somebody who's not qualified to give wedding advice.
Yeah.
Come back to the self-deprecation. And then you end with a really heartfelt thing. Hey, listen, man, I love you. You're my guy. Always have been. I'm super happy that you met the love of your life today. And however you want to word that, obviously do it. But I would say do it in your words. Do it in your tone.
Yeah.
Do it in a way that sounds natural to you. Don't make it a Hallmark movie. Don't do that. Make it you. Make it authentically you. And then bring the crowd to their feet with a huge toast and then go off like a champ.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. So all that you just laid out, I think was perfect. Like, I mean, how long should that take? Like, what's a good range that's not too long, not too short?
Yeah, so there's 2 primary ranges that we generally aim for. And we have different packages that we offer depending on how long you want the speech to be. So the one range is kind of 2 to 3 minutes, and the other is 5 to 7 minutes. Now, you can't go wrong with either. The real difference is 2 to 3 minutes, you're hitting all the highlights. So you're giving kind of a quick highlight of how you met. You're giving a quick highlight of all the stuff. You're giving a couple of great jokes, a couple of great sentimental moments. You roll off that stage, you leave them wanting more. Great. 5 to 7 minutes is when you have some just killer stories to share. And we generally discourage people using stories in speeches unless they're great stories. So a lot of fathers of the bride, particularly, they want to give long-winded talks about, when Katie was 9, she first started gymnastics, and tell you about that time with her coach. And then I stepped in, and then she was 10 and she started soccer, and the crowd has fallen asleep before she even gets to middle school. So you don't want to make the speech biographical. That's the biggest thing I can say. People can read the biography of the bride. What they really want is funny stories, like weird, wacky, crazy things that happened.
Yeah.
And that brings you to the 5 to 7 minute range, but you still have their attention because the story is awesome.
Yeah. I love it. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but I'm just curious, like of the like best man speeches, whatever that you've written, any stories like that stick out, like obviously hiding the names of the innocent or whatever you want to say, but like just like general, like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have any examples of just like, that was like the perfect story to have for a best man speech kind of thing?
Oh yeah. There was one best man speech. It was his wedding in California, and the bachelor party and we're talking like so there were 3 bachelor parties for this guy.
Okay.
You get 3 of them.
Wow.
And because he got married 3 times. So the groom started talking about all the different bachelor parties. They went on. And the best story was the first bachelor party, which was way back in 1998.
Wow.
And the guys went to Vegas, and they ended up partying with Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman in Vegas.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And it was just a wild story. And and the crowd was going nuts, and it was all true. That's the best part. It was all true. And then he got, the bachelor party number 2 was at 2003 or 2009. I can't keep track anymore, man. And then we went to the next one, and they did that one in New Orleans, and there was a wild story there. And so that was really, really fun. That was a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the takeaway then is if you have a Dennis Rodman story, just include it.
Always share it.
Yeah.
If you met Dennis Rodman, share it. No matter what. It'll
Right.
find its way into the speech, and you can never go wrong with it.
Yeah. Put that in there.
Absolutely.
I love it. That's great, man. So, so you shared with us a really good, like, sort of flow to follow. So I just wanted to ask about some other, we talked about them earlier, some of the other common speeches that are given, and just if there's anything that you would maybe add to or change from what you had to say about the best man speech. So let's jump to like father of the bride, which you said earlier, expect to give a speech, right? I would assume these tend to be a little bit sappier, that sort of thing. Maybe not, but I'm just kind of curious, like, would you follow the same template you just gave us? Are you changing that up a little bit? What are you telling people that are giving that kind of speech?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jake. I would say the father of the bride speech is a kind of unique beast. You're following some of the same template, but the acknowledgements are really important because in a lot of cases, this guy is a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times paying for the wedding. So it's his job in a lot of ways to welcome everybody. So this is where you want to thank the people who came in from out of town. You want to thank some of them by name. You can't thank everybody by name, or you're going to be there for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You want to thank a couple. Somebody, for instance, they flew in all the way from Australia. Got to give them a shout out by name. That's a pretty big deal. Somebody who drove in from Chicago, what are you going to do? So don't worry about that as much. So that's the first thing. Make sure the acknowledgements. Father of the bride also, you want to acknowledge any family members who passed on, who were really close to your family, were really close to the bride. Acknowledge their spirits in the room. And you don't even have to be a spiritual or religious person to do it, but really as a respect thing, a lot of people in the crowd will appreciate that. And there are ways to do it without getting, I would say, too sappy or too down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
A lot of times, this past year has been a real challenge because a lot of people who've gotten married, particularly in 2021, have lost people to COVID and who are going to be at that wedding. And we've had to find a way to work that in without bringing the mood of the room down. That's the real balance for fathers. You have to give the acknowledgement, but you don't want to turn this into a funeral. You don't want to turn this into a eulogy.
Right.
So how do you pivot right back to a joke immediately? So that's the real challenge.
Yeah.
So for the fathers, you want to be respectful. You want to acknowledge. And then after you give the acknowledgements, then you want to, I can't believe I'm using this word, pivot. Pivot to the bride, and then you want to talk about your daughter. You want to talk about that first time you held your daughter in your arms, what emotion was going through you, what you felt in that moment, because every father in the world who has a little girl will never, ever, ever forget the moment he first held her in his arms, ever. This is such a powerful moment. You want to talk about that because this is where you want to hook in the bride emotionally. I'd say for the best man, you want to create a show for the crowd. For the father of the bride, you want to create a memory for your daughter. That's the most important thing. You talk about that moment, she'll never forget it. So now you start talking about that. Then you talk about growing up, what it meant to you watching her grow up, how you've seen her grow into the young lady that she is today. That's a huge component of it. Then you want to talk about this person that's sitting next to her. When did you meet them? When did you first hear about them? This is when a lot of humor gets into it. What were your first thoughts about them? What was the first meeting like? And all that good stuff. As a father, I'm very protective, and then you kind of get into that and you could have some bait and switch jokes. And then you follow the best man template. So you talk about her, and then you talk about who she's marrying, then you talk about them together. And then once you talk about them together, then you give that fatherly advice, that fatherly wisdom, and then you send them off with a great toast.
Very nice. I love it, man. You should do this for a living. You know that?
It's something, isn't it? I'll tell you the most incredible thing about it is that we've written for everybody from literally every walk of life. We've written for ice road truckers. We've written for CEOs of Fortune 100 companies. Currently, I'm working on a speech right now, and we have a confidentiality agreement, so I can't give the name, but he's a world champion wrestler, and everybody knows this guy. And his daughter's getting married on Saturday. And he reached out to us because he wants to bring down the house too. This guy's a multimillionaire, platinum superstar, but he's just the dad who loves his little girl at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's the coolest thing about what we do is we see all walks of life, but we realize our common humanity is brought out through these weddings.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
I love it, man. If you don't mind, I mean, you brought up a great point about in the father of the bride's speech, like kind of having the, acknowledging people that are no longer with us, that kind of thing, but not doing it in a way where it doesn't turn into feeling more like a eulogy or a funeral. Like, do you have just an example to share? Like, it doesn't have to be specific, but just like an example of like how you might do that, like how you can acknowledge something like that quickly and then sort of get right back to the speech. Like, how quickly would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we write for a decent amount of fathers who are widowers. And so the bride's mom is no longer with us and they have to acknowledge her. So we say something along the lines of, I know, and I want to acknowledge everybody who came here to join us today for this special occasion. But I particularly want to acknowledge some very special guests who are here with us in spirit. I know your mom is standing right next to me right now because I feel her. I see her, I sense her, I smell her perfume, I see her smile, and I know that smile is looking down on her little girl right now. This is the moment she's been waiting for her entire life. And even from the other side, I know she's with us. I know she's part of this occasion. She's with us in every drink that we have today, every bite that we enjoy, every dance move that we cut on that floor, every hug we exchange, every kiss we give. This day is every bit as much hers as it is ours. And I just want you to know what this means to her right now. And I know she's smiling down on you. And then you pivot to somebody else in the crowd. So while you're giving that this is going to get some tears from the bride when you put in the right words. And I'm just kind of spitballing here, but
right.
we read it a lot better than that. We actually have a chance to go through the words, but the bride will feel that emotion. The father will feel that emotion. And then we will immediately break that tension and saying, I know she's standing here right now. And she's telling me, you better behave yourself tonight, because if you embarrass our little girl, I am going to haunt you for the rest of your life. And then everybody starts laughing. The big exhale comes out. Yeah. So now we've gotten the emotion up, but you know how it is when you get really emotional, but then you break a little joke. It's like that huge exhale. It comes out, you release that. So you release all that with a joke, and then you can smoothly move on to the next segment. Yeah.
Okay. I love it, man. That's great. So talk to me a little bit, and then let's switch gears to the maid of honor, matron of honor. Is that the template that they're going to follow? Is that pretty much similar to the best man speech? Like anything that's specific to that speech that you always try to include, or a direction that you try to go with it?
Yeah, so a lot of fun so the matron of honor speeches and maid of honor speeches are different animals than the best man speeches for the most part. The best man speech, there is one commonality, is both sides bust the groom's chops to high heaven and back. I mean, that is the one commonality. So if you have a wedding where you have a bride and a groom, the maid of honor specifically is going to tell the bride how much she loves her, and is going to basically warn the groom, like, look, here's the deal. Don't worry about her. You got to worry about me. And it's really funny the way she does that. And there's really creative ways to do it. There's some really funny stories that she can share, but the key to it is, and this is different, and there is a difference, and we've noticed this, is that a lot of grooms are much more comfortable sharing their really embarrassing stories than brides are. So you can tell a really embarrassing story about a groom at a bachelor party in Vegas, but you probably don't want to share what the bride was up to at her bachelorette party.
Okay.
So grandma's going to be there. There's like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of considerations here. And a lot of that, is there a double standard? 100% there is. 100% there's a double standard, but that's just reality. So we don't make the cultural rules. We just play within them. And one thing you can never go wrong with, though, is busting the groom's chops. Just have fun at that guy's expense, and you're going to bring down the house every time.
Yeah. Very nice. So do you have an example, or just a line of like, that maybe you shouldn't cross as far as like telling a story on the bride? Like, how do you advise people? Like, how do you know if stories shouldn't be told?
Yeah. Ex-boyfriends, first and foremost, do not mention ex-boyfriends, do not mention ex-husbands. That's a big thing. We do a lot of second weddings, a lot of third weddings. Don't mention the exes. I don't even care if the exes are in the room. You don't mention the exes. You don't do it. Some of the exes are in the room. We've had some fun stories like that. Don't mention them. Don't mention anything sexual. That's, that should go without saying, but a lot of people, that common sense doesn't register with them. So we have to kind of beat that out of them a little bit. Yeah. Don't mention times when they got too drunk and, threw up all over a cop. probably not a good thing to mention. We've seen that. Don't recommend. So I would say things that, because at the end of the day, we can say, it's a wedding of two people, but it's the bride's show.
Yep.
The bride is the star of the show, and everybody else is simply an extra, including the person the bride is marrying. Now, we happen to write for a lot of LGBTQ weddings, so you have two brides, which is great. They're both stars of the show. We have a lot of fun with that. But for weddings where you have a bride and a groom, the bride's the star of the show. This dude is just some guy who threw on a tux, showed up and said, I do. So him you can have fun with. The bride, this is her big day. Don't mess with the big day. Do not embarrass her, no matter what.
Okay. Good advice. Yeah. I like that. All right. So maybe one more. I don't know if you do many of these, but I'm just curious, about like siblings. So like, brother of the groom or whatever, sister of the bride or vice versa, that sort of thing. Like, are you writing many of those speeches? And again, kind of the same question, like if you are a sibling giving a speech at a wedding, is it more of a funny speech? Is it more father of the bride like, or somewhere in between? Like, what would your advice be to a sibling that's supposed to give a speech at a wedding?
I would say it all depends on the relationship the sibling has. So we've written for some siblings where the younger sibling who's getting married is essentially like a kid. And, maybe they're like 13 or 14 years older. Oh. And what they want to do is give that almost like motherly or fatherly advice as opposed to the sibling advice. And then we have a lot we've written for where we're writing for twins. You're not giving any advice as a twin at all. Yeah. You're doing your thing, you know what I mean? And you're having fun with them and you're telling some stories. And so I would say it all depends on the relationship. Some are going to be more parent and some are going to be more best man, maid of honor-ish kind of peer level.
Okay. Very nice. That's fantastic, man. So let's talk about, we're going to wind down with just a few general questions, and then I'll let you close this out here in a couple of minutes with just how people can get in touch with you and that sort of thing. If they're just, hey, Geoff, I'd rather have you do this. Still feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. So what's, general rules. So we've talked about other speeches, but like if somebody's just figuring out, no matter what their role is, like, are there one or two ways that you should always start a wedding speech in general? Like, do you always start with an icebreaker, or is there like an alternative to that? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a couple of different ways that you'd say, like, look, this is always just kind of a can't miss way to get started, no matter what your role is?
Yeah, I would say don't try to get too cute. Okay. A lot of people do that and they try to, make it a whole big Broadway production. And unless you are a proven performer, and unless you are very comfortable on stage and you can pull this off like a boss, I would just stick with the tried and true. Start with the joke, start with an icebreaker, like a funny one too. You grab the mic and then you look at your speech and say, well, the owner of a 2012 black Nissan Altima, so you can have fun with it and just anything to get a laugh to warm them up, because there's a lot of neuropsychology around this where if you can find a way to get somebody to laugh, they like you immediately. And they will listen to what you have to say next, because you lit up all the fun stuff in their brain, all the neurotransmitters that are getting all that serotonin flowing and all the dopamine hits, and they're feeling good, they're laughing, and they associate laughing and feeling good with your face. That's a good thing. So start off with a joke and you can't go wrong.
Okay, very good. And then what you touched on some of this in the bride category, but anything else that you would put on the list of like stuff you should just never say in a wedding speech, like don't go there kind of stuff?
Oh boy, yeah. So
probably a long list.
There's a long list. So I'd say, the biggest thing, obviously, exes, we always say exes and sexes, the biggest thing, the ex and sex, stay away from. I would say too, for yourself, don't drink too much before you start the speech. People have nerves. They take down a few and like, I got this. No, you don't. I'm telling you, one drink is great. We actually encourage one drink is great. Loosens up a little bit, but do not have more than one drink. Cannot emphasize that enough. Afterwards, hey, it's a wedding, knock yourself out. But before the wedding, do not have more than one drink before your speech. That's a hard and fast rule. Never, ever have more than one drink. I don't care how big a guy you are. I got it, my tolerance. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. I'm telling you. I would also say with the bride, you really want to make sure that you're creating eye contact with the bride too. You don't want to say anything derogatory about the bride's weight, the bride's makeup, anything that could possibly can be construed as an insult, and only insult the groom in the lens of good-natured ball busting. You don't want to actually basically say the bride made a mistake by marrying this person. I've seen that. It's not good. And you don't want to insult the family. You don't want to be a Don Rickles insult comic. You want to have fun, but you don't want to actually cut people down to size. That's a big one. Don't do that.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, that would be. Have you, like, in this business, like, do you attend a lot of weddings? Like, do you go like for studying? Like, have you seen just tons of wedding speeches? I would kind of imagine you've seen like some really good ones and some really just terrible speeches. Is that fair to say?
It's funny. I attend not nearly as many weddings as I used to, but I get a lot of videos from the folks that we write for, and I get to see kind of how it all unfolds in real time, and it's helped me and my team perfect our craft by really seeing what jokes stick, what don't, what does the crowd react to, and then we've been able to perfect it over time. But we have seen some nightmares out there.
Yeah,
nightmarish speeches. There was one father of the bride speech that went on for 46 minutes. Yeah, and you couldn't get him off the stage because the guy paid for everything. And he was a real big shot guy. The guy he was one of like the executive vice presidents of a major pharmaceutical firm in New Jersey. And he thought very highly of himself. You could not get him off stage. And nobody had the courage to cut him off. So he just kept going. And it was torture. Like, I think intelligence agencies use the footage of his speech to force confessions. I'm pretty sure about that, because I feel like that you could never go wrong with that. I would tell anybody anything they wanted to know if they strapped me down and forced me to watch that speech. It was.
I guess maybe like a related question off that. Like, is there a good way? Like you said, the guy that kind of paid for everything, it's a little bit tough. But like, I don't know if you're. I don't know if that would fall to like the groom or the bride or whatever. But like, let's just say a best man or somebody's kind of going a little bit off course. Like, is there a tactful way to like get them to shut up? Like, go take the mic. Like,
that's tough. Yeah, that's really tough, because someone's got to literally get out of their seat and walk up there in the middle of doing it. The only person who has power over the father of the bride generally is the father of the bride's spouse. Okay. So that is the one person in the world where if they come up and say, "You're done," like, okay, I guess I'm done. And then they walk off. These guys may be captains of industry, but they don't want to sleep on the couch. So right. That can pull the plug on it. And of course the bride too, because hey, daddy's little girl, she has that guy wrapped around her little finger. If she says we're done here, then we're done here. So it's a team effort. Maybe get the DJ to play some like music that they do for commercial breaks on like the Oscars when they're going too long and they just kind of. We're moving on here. That idea. Yeah. Some DJs will do that too. Some DJs will have these little tricks they do. Will actually cut the mic. Yeah. Like, off. And a DJ will say, "All right, well, let's give a big hand," this and that, and everybody. I saw that once. That was great. That was a wedding in Boston. DJ was an absolute boss. Pull that off. That's awesome. Yeah, that's probably a smooth way to do it. Oh yeah, it was brilliant. Guy kept going on and on and on. He cut. DJ was looking around. He's like, "All right, 15 minutes. Yeah, we're done." Just cut it. And DJ made it seem like they had technical issues. "So sorry, folks, we're having some issues with the mic, but hey, let's give a big hand for the father. What a great speech that was." And that was the way of, yeah. I love that. That's awesome. Great. And they went out into the chicken dance right afterwards, which was awesome. Yeah, just fire up the music. Everybody fire up the chicken dance. Everybody just immediately forgets. Yeah, absolutely. It was a great time. Yeah. So last question, maybe. So I asked a minute ago about, the best way to start a speech. And you talked about, that basically you can't go wrong with getting everybody laughing. Everybody's feeling good, just a quick joke, whatever you got, just to get everybody feeling good, ready for the speech. Kind of the opposite of that. Is there some advice you give people, no matter what speech you're giving, like can't fail ways to end a speech at a wedding? Yeah, you want to end on a great toast. So what you want to do is get everybody to raise their glasses, and then you finish your toast. You say, "All right, now can everybody please join me and raise your glasses in a toast to the happy couple." So everyone raises their glasses, and then you kind of pivot to the bride and groom. One toast that you can, and this is where it's good to use like a cultural toast. So you have like there's a lot of great Irish toast. There's a lot of great Jewish toast, a lot of great Italian toast, Chinese toast, Nigerian toast, everything under the sun. I would find a really good one from the culture of the people getting married, or if there's two cultures or more, combine them. But if you want to just kind of use a generic one we like a lot is, may the years be many, may the troubles be few, may the laughter always flow, may the love always grow between the two of you. Cheers. And then everyone goes, cheers. And like, you put the mic down and then you applause, and then you walk over and then you give the big hugs and everything. And then, you take a bow to the crowd, and then the crowd gets up and it's a whole thing. And then you're the star of the show that night.
Yeah.
You deliver a wedding speech, you are going to be a star at that wedding.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. No, that's
the best man.
Yeah.
Best man out there. I'm going to keep this as PG as I can, but I'm just going to tell you, I've never had a single best man who's delivered a great speech who didn't have great wedding stories associated with that afterwards. So best men, just telling you, there's something powerful about a guy in a tux with a mic who just commands a room. It's it's a thing.
One of the perks of the job, huh?
One of the perks of the job. We had one best man who was in a pilot outfit when he did the whole thing, and he said, yeah, he got 8 numbers from that wedding after his speech, and he was everyone was coming up then. He was the star he was a star, and it was great. So
wow,
yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, Geoff, this has been fantastic. Why don't you close us out a little bit with just telling people, if somebody's listening to this show here and they're probably listening because they're freaking out about a wedding speech they've got to give, talk a little bit about your service and just how people can get in touch with you, how far out you need to know, and just whatever you want to share on just how the process works and all that. Feel free to wrap us up with that. So if people want your help, they know how to do it.
Absolutely. So the first thing I would say is, the minute you're told that you're giving a speech is the minute you need to start preparing. A lot of people wait to the last minute. Like anything else in life, you wait to the last minute, it's not going to be as good. So immediately start preparing. If you need help with your speech, best thing I'd recommend is check out our website, winningwit.com. That is winningwit.com. You can see all the different kind of services that we offer, all the different packages that we offer. You can reach me directly. Our number is right there on the site. My email address is right there on the site. So feel free to reach out. Even if you just want to pick our brain, if you're not going to hire us to help you out, but you just want some tips, we're happy to help you out with that too. We've got you covered.
Very nice. Very cool. What's like for you guys, what's your typical like turnaround time? Like how late is too late? If somebody's like, listen to this and they're like, hey, I got a speech next week.
I would say probably give us at least a couple of days. So we have a lot of, as we call panic buys, where people, it's like Thursday, wedding Saturday, like, oh my God, I need a speech.
Yeah.
So we can help you with that. We can turn that around for you, but just know that we're not going to be able to do the rounds of editing that we normally do. If you come to us earlier, we can do a couple rounds of editing to make sure you really, really love the final product. We'll write you something good if you come to us a couple of days out. If you come to us a few weeks out or a few months out, we're going to write you something phenomenal.
Okay, awesome. Well, Geoff, thanks a lot, man, for being on the show. I enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully people got a lot of value from it, man. So best of luck to you, and thanks for being with me today.
Appreciate it, Jake. Have a good one, my man.